Good morning.
Well, good morning, Al. Another rainy day here on the eastern shore of Maryland. I trust in Annapolis as well.
Yeah, we timed our walk with the dog perfectly. Just as we hit the sidewalk outside our condo, the rain started to come down. So we
Yeah.
had perfect timing.
Well,
But,
happy belated Memorial Day.
same to you. Craig, you posted on Decade 7 in Fromm and Fuller yesterday, President Reagan's speech at Normandy at a place that I visited a few years later. Uh, it, on the 40th anniversary of the Normandy invasion, and he was at my French isn't very good, but Pointe de Lac, where
Right.
the Army Rangers mounted these almost unbelievable cliffs. I don't know if you've ever been there, but when
I
you take
have
a look
been.
at those cliffs, you marvel that they could ever get up there, particularly with German guns firing at them. But in that incredible speech, which reminds us about the kind of uh, moral and civic and patriotic leadership our country deserves from President Reagan. There were a couple of lines that I just like to uh, focus on, and maybe we can talk about because it's so different than when we are today. Uh, as Tony Kornheiser would say, I'm going to the glasses. Uh, the uh, and the first was there's a profound moral difference between the use of force for liberation and the use of force for conquest. Reagan was talking to uh, uh, some of the survivors of that invasion. He said, "You were here to liberate, not to conquer." And so you and those others did not doubt our cause. That's a lot different than a war of choice. In an administration that seems hell bent on conquest in Venezuela, I think they really, they wanted to conquer, they wanted to get control of the oil in Iran. Lord knows they probably it was probably mostly about oil, but also the vanity of the president, and now Cuba. But that moral difference,
Yeah,
that morality is what makes this country so great.
it is
And now,
striking. It is striking. When President Reagan ran in 1980, as you will recall, he talked
right,
about reducing the budget,
right.
uh, but but the one exception was he was going to rebuild the defense capabilities of the country. But he was doing it uh, to deter aggression. He was not doing it to go, pull dictators out of countries and arrest them or get retribution on somebody that he didn't like. I mean, or certainly was not doing it to put a military in the streets of the United States. I mean, he was doing it to deter the threats that we faced and that Europe faced, which was a big part of that speech was a message that we are very much a part of Europe. I think he said something to the effect that their destiny was our destiny. Such a different time.
Well, and the other thing, just for our viewers to understand in the context, the Cold War was still going on.
Right.
And that because a big chunk of the speech was devoted to the fact that we didn't wound up not liberating all of Europe because the Soviets moved into Eastern Europe. But the alliance goes to the second thing that I just uh, 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 I just stuck out to me as I listened and looked at the transcript. Uh, he's talking again to these Army Rangers who had uh, led that invasion. And he said, of those who fell here, they rebuild the new Europe together. Uh, there was first a great reconciliation among those who had been enemies, all of whom had suffered so greatly. The United States did its part, creating the Marshall Plan to help rebuild our allies and our former enemies. The Marshall Plan led to the Atlantic Alliance, a great alliance that serves to this day as our shield for freedom, for prosperity. uh, the devotion to the NATO alliance, which basically again has been called upon to save Europe from Soviet aggression or from Russian aggression. Now the Soviet Union obviously has collapsed, and but the difference, a United States president, as all presidents since World War II have been, uh, devoted to honoring that alliance because, as he said, it was essential to our freedom and to the European freedom until this one.
Yeah. I've heard the speech a number of times or listened to it a number of times. It is one of my favorites from his 8 years as president. And every time you listen to it, you hear something different, maybe because you're listening to it at a different time. But
Right, right.
the one line near the end that that just jumped out at me that I had not paid attention to before was the phrase that we are bound, meaning Europe and the United States, we are bound by reality. And I thought, it's such I think the reason I didn't pay enough attention to it was because it's kind of obvious. I mean, you hope
Yeah,
that our policies are in fact based on reality and that we are bound by our reality with Europe. We offer them protection, but they've come to our aid too, after 9/11.
right.
And yet it seems like these days Washington creates its own reality and goes and lives in it and ignores the reality that the rest of the world sees all too often.
You know, uh, actually, it was the third thing that I had highlighted in the speech was uh, basically the words he used around the phrase you just talked about. We're bound by reality, uh, uh, and you said, particularly today, it is good and fitting to renew our commitment to each other, to our freedom, and to the alliance that protects us. We're bound today by what bound us 40 years ago, the same loyalties, traditions, and beliefs. Then we're bound by reality. The strength of Americans' allies is vital to the United States, and American security guarantee is essential to the continuation of freedom of European democracies. Uh, how you can say it better?
Yeah, no,
And
that's true. That's true.
and we have a president who seems just absolutely hell bent on destroying that alliance.
I saw you may have seen it too this morning. We both watched Morning Joe, but
Right,
Ben Rhodes has a book out about presidential speeches, and as you were reciting those
right,
themes and those lines, I was thinking, one of the things that Europeans, maybe they're better at it, I don't know, but I think they pay attention to the words and phrases that Reagan used. It's why they
hmm,
trusted him. I mean, I had the amazing good fortune to travel to over 60
yeah,
countries with then Vice President George Bush, and the leaders of those countries wanted to sit down and as close to a one-on-one meeting as they could get, meaning they had to have me in there, but they would sit
right.
down with him one-on-one and confide in him because they wanted to send a message to President Reagan. They wanted to talk about what Reagan's leadership meant in the country, and that's the kind of president we sh- we should want to have,
Right.
one who is respected around the world. And I don't think we've gone in that direction in the last few years.
Well, when President Clinton uh, assumed office in 1993, uh, I I didn't go into the administration, but the White House asked me to travel to about a dozen countries around the world uh, because to talk about the sort of the underlying philosophy of President Clinton, the kind of reforms that we were trying to bring, how we basically changed the political posture of our party, but he was new and different. And as you said, to foreign countries and foreign leaders, the words of the United States president are sacrosanct.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think I went to 9 or 10 maybe countries uh, in Asia, in the Middle East, uh, and uh, uh, and then even in Europe later, just talking to government leaders and about uh, what our president thought, how he wanted to continue the alliance, and all those things. And you just can't imagine it. But we just celebrated Memorial Day, uh, where we uh, would ordinarily the focus would be on what the president said. I didn't see very much about what this president said yesterday because basically his views about military people are that they're there for his benefit to use as he sees fit, and if they happen to be I mean, as we know, in his first term, he called people like John McCain. He didn't see he was a hero because he got captured. He called military people suckers. But what it reminded me is in back when George H.W. Bush was president, one of his initiatives was 1,000 Points of Light, which was to talk about what I think is what makes American exceptional, which is our willingness to help our fellow citizens to a better life. And at that time, we in the Democratic Leadership Council with Senator Sam Nunn and Senator Chuck Robb and Congressman Dave McCurdy and Senator Bob Mikulski of Maryland uh, pushed first sort of uh, proposed what became AmeriCorps. And I thought we wrote a book that sort of was the philosophical basis for that. And I thought maybe I could read the very beginning, which talks about what we think makes American such an exceptional place. We said ours is a land of astonishing diversity, a magnet to immigrants from all over the world. The United States has no common racial, ethnic, religious, or cultural identity. What is what is the force that binds us together? What is the force that binds us together as a nation? What does it mean to be American? To a unique degree, who we are is defined by what we believe, by our embrace of a set of political and moral precepts based on human freedom and equality. America's social cohesion depends how faithfully we adhere to these basic ideals, which make up our common civic creed. The United States was conceived as a revolutionary experiment in popular sovereignty. America dispensed with kings and lords and resolved instead to govern themselves by a common law that defines equal rights and responsibilities for all citizens. As long as we remain willing to accept the burdens as well as the benefits of self-government, our democratic experiment will endure. Within that balance between individual liberty and social responsibility, self-reliance and cooperation, private interest and public duty lies the essential meaning of citizenship. As we approach our 250th birthday, I hope we have some people, and it's not going to be our president, who remind us of what has made America such an exceptional and different place, and how important it is to safeguard the freedom, the opportunities, and responsibilities that our system of government brings.
Well, I certainly share that. And as you were reading that, I was thinking a lot has been made of the relationship that two contenders for the presidency
Right,
formed in later life,
right,
Bill
right,
Clinton and George H.W. Bush. And I think for many reasons, or in many ways, it was because of the kind of philosophy that you were describing. I think
yeah,
they both, while they might differ on various policies, they both became like citizens of the world, and they went where they could
right,
help people, and they did it together. And they,
right,
in the process of doing it together, they became, closer and closer. It's really a remarkable thing to see. Which, by the way, is part of the whole Points of Light program. I mean,
right.
giving back to a community helps the community, but it helps the individual, and it makes for a much fulfilling life. So I'm all
You
for
know, and
celebrating that on our 250th
right.
anniversary,
And I must say that, the partnership goes on with George W. Bush,
yes,
because the Clinton Library, the Bush Library, and then actually involving uh, George H.W. Bush's library and LBJ's have launched a presidential fellowship, leadership fellowship program, which began, I guess, I don't know, it began right after George W. Bush left office, but it was inspired by the relationship between Bill Clinton and George W. Bush. So they continue to try to promote these values for our country.
that's great. Well, hey, listen, thanks for post
Right,
Memorial Day
right,
taking us down this path of
right.
reflection a little bit. We'll see you on Thursday. We'll
Right.
probably talk politics then.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot better than having to talk about what's going on in Texas or trying to catch up the with what's going on in Iran, which is almost impossible to follow because it changes every 30 seconds.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll save it for
See you,
Thursday. See you then.
see you Thursday.
Okay.